stretches in. But
I just have to not kick it.
Hello. Good morning. Hello. Can you hear me? Good morning, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the sunshine in Edinburgh, which is quite unusual, I'm told. I had a coffee about half an hour ago, and I'm feeling really jittery, so please excuse my shaking hands. So we today are here to talk about new approaches to promo. In with the past, we've had a few last-minute changes, so we've had to change our slides. But I'm going to get everyone to introduce themselves. But the premise of this panel this morning is, as social media platforms become more segmented and people increasingly opt out of the largest platforms, are physical promo, mailing lists, and newsletters on the rise? And how can these be integrated into campaigns from grassroots level artists to more established artists' acts? So we're going to take a look at what examples of traditional promotional methods, I'll put my teeth in, are being adopted or used, and to what extent they are forming a hybrid approach or a complete move away from social media. I think this is quite contentious, but we're going to sort of like talk about that. So I just wanted to do some brief introductions. I'm Ruth Barlow. I'm the director of live licensing at the Beggars group, which is a group of 5 independent labels based in London, 4AD, Matador, Rough Trade, and XL, and Young. Forgot about them. I'm also the chair of the current chair of the Association of Independent Music. So to talk and help us through this subject today, I'm joined by Maz, Hallie, Brendan, and Chloe. Do you guys want to say who you are and what you do and what we're here to talk about?
Yeah, I guess we'll go first. Hi, I'm Chloe. I'm a freelance graphic designer. I predominantly work with musicians across all sorts of genres. It goes from trad to punk to dub, all sorts. I'm also co-founding a record label called Interstice at the minute.
excellent. My name's Brendan Bourke. I work for a company called the Syndicate in New York City. I'm the VP of publicity there. Have been doing PR for 30 years now, entirely for independent labels or independent companies. So I've worked with a wide variety of artists over the time, and I think it'll be pertinent at some point in this conversation, as I used to have a fanzine back in my late teens, early 20s as well. So.
Hi, I'm Hallie. I'm the co-founder of a company called Rareform. We do marketing and strategy for musicians, labels in the US, but also global campaigns. And prior to that, I was the co-GM of Mom and Pop Music.
Hi, I'm Maz. I'm an artist and also a promoter and a DIY booking agent and a graphic designer and a video editor and a social media manager and
a true millennial
tour manager and whatever you want me to be. But I do everything with my friends.
I'm doing the full George Harrison there. I'll do whatever you want me to do. Right, so going to you guys, can I have a quick show of hands? Who feels like reach on social media is worse than a year ago? Put your hands up. That's quite a lot of you. So has anyone reduced their use or come off? This sounds like an addict question, doesn't it? Who has reduced their use or come off social media entirely? Still quite a small majority. And this is the other question. Has anyone gone to a show or bought a record purely on the basis of physical promo or an email newsletter? It's a very specific life circumstance. But anyone done that? Small amount of people. So what's changing then? Whoever wants to take this one. Are we actually seeing a move from social media, or is it just a change in how it's used? And do you think that this is a generational switch? Hallie, let's start with you.
I do think it's changing on how people use it. I think there's a lot of people I think are going back to like smaller fan communities or group communities. Like I think you've seen a rise in Substacks, Discord, more niche types of community building, less just about like big social channels. I think for some artists they can be really powerful, but a lot of times like you need quite a bit of spend to fully reach your audience, or other types of strategies that can impact algorithms to then push your music or content to certain new fans or current fans. So we have seen a movement more towards niche community building, and a lot of emphasis put on CRM growth and email list growth to, help artists own their own data versus relying on social networks.
Can we get a quick explanation of CRM for those who might not know that term?
Newsletters, email lists, that kind of thing, yeah.
What does the acronym stand for?
I don't know off the top of my head.
There we go.
Thank you. That was really nerdy. Content relation management. Sorry. I shouldn't mock the audience. So do you think this is a generational switch?
I think maybe that just coming out of COVID and then just the rise of social media, that we're finally hit that tipping point and we're heading back to people wanting some actual one-on-one connections with people, some in-person connections. I think everybody just got a little out in their own world there for a bit, and there's been a real desire for, especially with younger people, to finally connect again in live, in person, and physical way. And I think with a Substack or Discord or something like that, where you feel a little more like you're speaking directly to someone rather than just blasting something at them.
So do you just go to you girls here, but it's that's rude, folks here. Do you think that this is a globalization versus localization sort of issue in the, people just, it's great being connected online to a virtual global, community, but actually having a chat, going to the pub, hanging out at gigs, that sort of stuff. Are you seeing any change there?
I mean, I'd say so, yeah. I think more and more I see pals of mine that have come off of social media, but it's kind of like people that already sort of maybe have a community and they're getting back into it again, and people are sort of building frameworks that within their local communities that mean that they can actually still access these spaces. They don't need social media anymore. You get like sort of events listings like Communal Leisure in Glasgow, who they're just a website. So I know a lot of pals that come off and still go to gigs because they know what's still happening without having to be on Instagram. But I think as well, people still just really like crave talking to one another. Like, you can speak to somebody on Instagram, but it's so much better to see them in person and connect with them there.
And Maz, what are you seeing?
I use a lot of the traditional gig listings that get printed. There's an Edinburgh and Glasgow gig listings guide that's really good. There's one woman called Julie that curates all the gigs, so if you email her, she'll put your gig on this printed leaflet.
That's actually distributed?
Yeah, it's like in all the pubs. And I think they don't make any money off it. It's just her and a couple of volunteers. They've been doing it for decades, I think. And it's just so much nicer to see your gig printed on a thing and just open it and And I think that reaches the wider community as well, because I just feel like Instagram can be so intense and like everyone's like shouting like gig, come to my thing, come to my thing, come to my thing. Which is actually the real world is like much quieter. And you could just go to a bar and suddenly see something that catches your eye and be like, oh yeah, let's go to this, yeah, sure. And then we have a thing to remind us physically that there's a thing happening.
Yeah. So you both mentioned Instagram there. I mean, are we finding that's one of the particular platforms that's fallen out of favour, or are there others?
I mean, this is a difficult question to answer because when I'm looking at marketing budgets, I will say the biggest spend that we're spending around shows is running ads on Meta, which would be both Facebook and Instagram. Instagram does convert to higher sales than TikTok or other digital platforms. So I'd say we definitely are still utilizing those spaces, but I think what we found is it is that kind of like content overload where it is very difficult to keep people's attention. So how are you creating multiple moments for somebody to find out about something? So if it is a local leaflet or it is an Instagram ad or it's a newsletter, like I'm trying to create saturation and not maybe segment out and cut away social media, but look at like a broader landscape of how am I creating multiple touch points for a fan base or an audience. So that could be listening to your local community radio when there's an announcement about a show, because I think there is so much noise in today's world that it's like you have to create those touch points for people to then convert to a purchase of a vinyl, purchase of a ticket, or, joining an artist community.
And so keeping on social media for a moment, but what are the platforms that, obviously we've talked that particularly there's a fatigue with Instagram, but are there any other new social medias that are taking that place?
I mean, TikTok, we see that convert a lot more to streaming consumption. So if there is something that is going viral or you're seeing massive consumption around a sound, that usually impacts streaming platforms a bit more than if something is going viral on Instagram. But a lot of our artists are using things like Discord or even like small WhatsApp community groups too. Like that can be a really great way. It could be that you've identified a core group of super fans within your community and you have a special WhatsApp group where they're the first people you're going to tell about a new song or a show, and then they help you kind of push that out through their fan networks. That can be really good. Or, there's like text marketing, but that can become quite expensive depending on how you use it. Or Substacks for artists that are interested in long form writing. I think Lord's email list is a really good example of that. It's quite personal.
Well, who is that, sorry?
Lord.
Yeah.
Her email list. It's not just like go by, it's more about like a narrative based with like updates about things in her life, and I think that that's really connecting for fans. But it's kind of more about what a specific artist will be comfortable with and how they want to share their story and themselves with their fans, because I don't think it's just everything works for every artist.
Yeah, I think the big part of this discussion for me is just that, you have to look at yourself individually as an artist. What are the things you feel passionate about, or what are the things that you really don't enjoy doing that's going to burn you out and not actually make you want to promote yourself and shut down. So everybody's different. Some people are really great at social media. They love doing it. It's part of their life. They do their videos, they post them. They take the photos, and that's part of how they connect with fans. But for other people, that's not something they're comfortable with. And, they are better at doing something creative, doing something visual, creating, their own merch or creating art, or, that's how they can express themselves and connect with fans that way. Or, they love writing and they can do a Substack and, almost make that their diary and way of speaking about what inspires them, why they create, who they are as a person, and ultimately, that's how they can connect with their fans.
And I suppose in the olden days, they used to be able to get those ideas across in, traditional print media, but obviously as that's diminishing.
Sure, yeah. Obviously, there's not as many long-form interviews, and although, those things are also changing. I know I had coffee with Paul Bridgewater from the line of Best Fit a few months back, and he was talking about how their long-form interviews and their Substack were what was doing the best, getting the best numbers. So that would be some evidence that people are more interested in. They don't want to see a 1-minute video blurb, but they'd rather go and actually sit and read something. So.
Well, I think we're sort of like lacking that taste maker thing that we used to have. Where we had strong voices, sort of like having conversations, recommendations, and I feel like that's probably what's missing in streaming. It's just a great big bucket of stuff, isn't it? And it's like, sure. how do we get there?
Yeah, and there's the critics have always been on one side or the other. You could always say good or bad things about it, but you would find someone whose taste you trust. You're like, oh, I know exactly who the 5 people at Pitchfork are whose tastes are similar to mine, and if they like something, great, I'll go check that out. But yeah, with streaming on the DSPs or with social media, they don't care who you are. You're just a faceless human out there.
So getting back to sort of like, I suppose, the traditional versus the social media, I mean, to what extent are we seeing, sorry, bad mic use there. To what extent are we seeing a resurgence of printed promotional material? So, Chloe, I know that you are a graphic designer, and I think, Maz, you mentioned the same, it's posters, flyers, and stickers. I mean, do you have any interesting examples of where these are being used to particularly good effect?
I think I've seen a lot more sort of people putting more sort of effort into their designs. I think especially because there's so much going on social media. If you make yourself feel more interesting and a bit more different, then folk are more likely to engage. And that could be maybe about using more sort of physical print methods. I know there's a night in Glasgow called Erosion that do really interesting sort of balancing between physical and print, using, acetate and taking photos of the poster over different textures, which is quite cool. And a really cheap way to make a poster as well and make multiple sort of variations. We've been doing stuff with our label where we've just been literally putting up stickers with a QR code, which are very controversial. Some folk love them, some folk hate them. And it's actually worked really well for getting folk to sort of access our Linktree. And we've been able to put them all over the world. We've gone on holiday and it's there's one in Marseille now, there's one in Belfast. Maybe not all over the world, but yeah. It's quite a nice way to get something out in the world and get a different audience than you would normally.
And what about you, Maz, in your experience?
I do all the posters for our gigs, and I collaborate with my friends who are artists as well. I find that also I put posters up for other people, so I've seen a lot of posters. I find that a lot of people use AI. So it's very obvious when you make a poster with AI or with Canva. So a lot of posters look very the same and not great taste. But I think I try my posters to be, I currently work with my friend who's a painter, so it's kind of a painting, then I put the information on, and I think that really stands out. Everyone's I've seen this poster everywhere, and it really stands out because it's a little bit messy. It's not perfect. It's not perfect typeface, perfect this, da da da. It's a little bit. It feels a bit more human, and I think a lot of posters I see are so robotic. I've just did this on Canva, or I just asked ChatGPT to make me a poster, and it's crazy that even bigger promoters use it very, very regularly. So I think when you have a poster that feels a little bit more, if I was to give advice to anyone making a poster, even if you just draw it yourself by hand, that stands out so much more these days. Because so many posters look exactly the same.
Well, it's also an opportunity for collaboration, isn't it? And it's part of your community building.
Yeah.
If there's an artist who's particularly in your scene and connects with an artist, and then it conversely it becomes the artifact that people want to steal and put on their wall in their bedroom.
Best compliment ever.
Yeah,
Because when you walk past it, it's gone.
Getting really creative. We did a couple of campaigns with an artist, and it wasn't just new album out this date. One of them was a lot of the album was about feelings and engaging with fans on their feelings, and so we did a run of street posters that asked fans to take their chewing gum and put it on their feeling.
Cool.
So it was something where but it was a way that people could interact with the poster, or we picked a really key lyric that we felt really resonated with people, that was nobody really cares if you don't go to the party, and we did a huge mural, and that was one of the most shared pieces across all digital channels, including both fans and across different social networks, because it just connected with people. So I do think you have this box, right? How can you creatively use that box? And it could be collaborating with an artist or hand drawing it and not using AI. So.
Sure. And when you create something unique and interesting, then people are actually going to photograph it and put it up on socials.
Yeah. So it's sort of like a begatting situation, isn't it?
Exactly.
So, Hallie, you mentioned something that really piqued my interest a couple of moments ago, which was about the WhatsApp groups and sort of local WhatsApp groups or community WhatsApp groups. Because in a way, that's sort of a very modern version of the newsletter, but with interaction. I mean, can you talk about any particular groups and what you think that they, do well?
Yeah, so we work with a J-pop band, and we had identified through different means, like maybe it's like 10 to 15 global fans that are just like real super fans. And so we created a WhatsApp group that is just those fans. So it's like a very small closed group. And I'd say, like, when you think about a traditional marketing funnel, these are the people that are down at the bottom that are going to be your most dedicated fans. And so we've created this group where we are the admins in it, but essentially, like, we are passing them information first. So because they are such big fans, we're rewarding them with, like, getting to see videos first, getting exclusive photos, getting information that they then kind of help us spread and share. But it's also like, we'll send free merch, or we'll give them tickets to shows if a show's in their market. So, like, it is kind of a mutually beneficial kind of, interaction between them, but it's just creating kind of like a modern street team, and like that group could be as many people as you want or as small as you want, but I think that works really well in managing more lower level funnel fans, so very super fans versus like top of funnel discovery.
And how do you manage that when it starts growing?
Well, it's a closed group, so you have to add people to it.
Right.
So, like, with that specifically, it is kept really small. But if it was something that was really big, it would be similar to like a Discord where you have an admin in there that's kind of like managing that flow of communication and information. If it's much bigger, it's probably less conversational than a small group and more about like one-way communication, more like a business channel would be on WhatsApp, but this is more like what you'd have with your friends, right? Like a group chat or something like that.
So that's a great example of a hybrid model, but does anyone here feel that the traditional mailing lists are growing again?
Yeah, I definitely see that. There's more of an emphasis for artists to, back 20, 30 years ago, every artist had their own mailing lists at every gig. You got passed around or was at the merch table. Obviously now it's easier to sign up online or something. But again, it's all about that direct connection and being able to reach out to people directly. I think I'm sure everyone follows some artists on Instagram or on socials or whichever your preferred channels are. But having those communications, being able to, again, offer up things to those fans in advance, whether it's pre-sale or, whether it's the opportunity to get something exclusive. I definitely feel like in the past few years, those numbers or the importance or a focus of that for artists going into a campaign is definitely on the rise.
Yeah, I remember a day back in the day when you used to always get like a postcard in a CD slipcase that you had to mail to some sort of like PO box. I mean, is anyone using, even though Royal Mail's really shit these days, but is anyone using sort of like the mailing system or doing postcards or anything like that?
Yeah, I've done a couple campaigns. One we did like a sign up on the artist website where fans could enter in their mailing addresses, and then the band on every stop on tour would get local postcards and then mail those postcards out to like randomly selected fans. So it was a way to like kind of connect the dots between like multiple places around the world. We also did a run of like a limited 7-inch where we put like the first 30 seconds of a new single on and sent that out to like a group of fans that we'd identified as like top purchasers from their D2C store, like some of the most engaged fans online. And that was like how we kicked off an album campaign and like hid the album date in the packaging and stuff like that. So yeah, we've done it like creatively, but not like consistent mailings because that's quite expensive.
Yeah, it is. Brendan, I want to go back to traditional media because obviously that's where your expertise lays. Being a PR person, there's a lot of automation these days, isn't it?
Certainly.
Do you think, or are you sensing a return to that sort of like personal connection with those tastemakers, having conversations with radio producers or, journalists?
I feel like if there is a swing in that direction, it is just starting to come back. I feel like a lot of the media outlets are on wobbly feet or legs to still trying to find their audience, and I think they're probably a little being reactive instead of proactive as far as finding those audiences or adjusting to people's tastes. I think just the nature of a lot of the media outlets have been gobbled up by other companies or probably even by some hedge funds or something along those lines who really don't have much concern about the media outlets that they own. But I think we're probably going to head that way. I think if you look at Pitchfork in the U.S., who's owned by Condé Nast, who obviously recently figured out that they have no idea why they own Pitchfork.
I think that was pretty immediate.
Somebody realized that they suddenly bought Pitchfork a few years back, and they were confused as to why.
The original Pitchfork guys made that work within that system for a good few more years than we imagined.
Absolutely, and they did quite well for themselves when they sold it to Condé Nast. But yeah, I think there's an understanding there that people need to take that step backwards and actually focus on an audience. And what are the things that they need to do to engage with people, which, again, talking about line of best fit and how they long-form articles. And I think to a sense that people are getting kind of tired of just being blasted at. And, sometimes when you open up social media, you just feel like you're being assaulted by videos and people talking at you instead of, something that you can actually take a moment to engage with and actually learn something from.
So I think that's a very good point. I mean, the fact is, music's culture, and it's not sort of like a observational sport. It's a participation, sort of like
it's a two-way
activity.
street.
Yeah. So Maz, I just wanted to go back to you just on the traditional media. I mean, are you reaching out, for your band personally to, journalists or radio people, or are you forging those relationships?
Yeah, I do all the PR that I can from a DIY way where I write my own press releases, and then I find I just open a magazine and see, okay, this person wrote that. No, let's find their contact.
I love that. I always tell artists to do that.
And then you go in this rabbit hole.
Yeah, because
does anybody know the number for?
I said nobody's doing this to make money.
No.
So journalists that are out there that are doing that, and radio programmers or DJs, they love discovering stuff, and often they'll claim that they did it on their own. But
and then if you take the time to read their articles as well, they really appreciate it.
Of course, absolutely.
Because they think that no one's reading them either. It's like, oh, I really like the review that you did for this band, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, yeah, cool. Here you go. This is my band.
Smoothing over, going on.
Yeah. I've got a whole pitch email strategy, one day I'll share.
But, I always tell artists to take the time, look at those publications, look at the writers. What are they writing about?
It's a bit of a two-way street as well, because especially I think on a Scottish level, where it's very kind of everyone's kind of a volunteer, and it just runs on favors and love, really. No one's making money. It's not Pitchfork. So you just kind of have to be in the sphere of the people that write these things and just approach them with a lot of appreciation and be like, well, here's my little band. Maybe you might be interested in talking about it. Thank you so much for the support. And sometimes they're like, yeah, okay.
And what about you, Chloe?
I think there's, I feel like so much of it is just about kind of leaning on your local community for these sort of things. I feel like recently with the whole label stuff, I've just been firing out so many messages to random people that I've met at a gig, and they've said they're a writer, and I'm like, oh, hey, do you want to write about this? But also, I know we're obviously meant to be avoiding social media, but LinkedIn, if you want to go for sort of bigger dogs and stuff, go on LinkedIn, see if you can find people that work at places like Pitchfork and NTS and stuff. If you find their name, fire in the email address, the Pitchfork thing afterwards.
And you find that people are being receptive to that? Because, given the volume of music and the volume of people who want to be involved. I mean, I thinking back to, I used to be a radio producer back in the day, and I used to sit on playlist panels for a station called XFM in London, and this was 25 years ago. Back then, it felt like there was too much music, and I was speaking to a radio presenter friend going, how on earth do you listen to everything? I mean, literally, how do you find the time? So what's making your art, your work stand out? I mean, Hallie, how do you make your things stand out to these people to make them choose you?
I think it's like repetition. Like sometimes that's it, right? And like starting early. So like not just saying like, hey, can you promote my show on your radio station? But maybe it's like, you thank them because you send them your music, and then maybe they play it, and then you thank them for that play, and then you have a show coming up, and you see if they want to give tickets away. Things like that. That's more of like a tiered approach. Or if you meet somebody in person at a conference or in real life, like that can be really helpful because there's that personal touch. Or finding somebody that knows somebody that can make an introduction for you, that can be really helpful. LinkedIn, like sure, maybe you send out 100 emails and not everybody gets back, but there is a portion of that group that probably will. So I do think it's kind of like shoot your shot and see if it happens, and if it does, keep pursuing those people that engaged with you.
Worst case scenario, they actually know the name of yourself or your artist or your band. There's always, you got to start small.
Or targeting niche communities. I think sometimes people look at like Rolling Stone or Pitchfork or Billboard or these like big, national magazines, and it's like that's what you want, but sometimes that's like very broad and can be very passive, where like there are some of these really niche communities that have a really high engagement. So
give us an example.
I think of like Perfectly Imperfect, which is like a Substack community, and like I think a lot of those remind me of like early blog days and like the 2010s kind of time, where like you were following people because you really liked their taste. So I do think if you have maybe you have other interests other than music, and you want to reach out to this niche community and see if they want to talk about your music because you want to talk about your other interests and music. Maybe it's art and music, maybe it's food and music, or it is like someone that's doing an album review Substack and you send your album to them. Like, I do think sometimes people ignore those communities because they feel that they are small, but sometimes those have the most engaged and most loyal people, where they are reading every newsletter that they're getting because they trust and love that person who's managing it and writing it.
So, but there is something that's happening in the industry, which is you're paying for placement with those communities as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Hallie?
I generally don't pay for it. I don't love that personally, but I think it depends on the market too, where people are paying for interviews, but.
I think a lot of the payment is more on social media channels, people that have and some of the fees are quite exorbitant, I will say.
Apparently they've got a lot of agents. There's a whole other sort of like business going on there.
Sometimes their 1 minute post that they want to do for their TikTok channel is more than is our entire PR fee for 6 months. They're like, I don't know if I don't think that's in the budget, but thank you.
But I suppose what you guys are saying, there's still authentic people doing that
absolutely.
Without there being a transaction. So.
And I think if you can get a dozen of those type of looks from that type, smaller communities, but they're there for a reason. They're passionate about it, and they love having that conversation. That's way more important than getting your one enemy review or your one Rolling Stone write up. So it'll get you a lot further. It'll at least move the needle for you more now. You can get the bigger outlets further on, but as far as building your audience, that's a great starting place.
Yeah. So just change of tack slightly. I'm going to a record shop after this. I'm going to Assai. I think it's quite a walk. I'm a big vinyl person, and I've got to look for a Woman album, but I don't think anyone's got it in stock in Edinburgh, which is really upsetting me. But are you guys noticing a rise in physical releases around the music that you make or the artists that you work with, and that becoming sort of like more a part of the promotional mix? But there's also, I was in the 4AD pop-up shop that they did in Brixton last week, and they had a wall of cassettes. and it's like, who's got a cassette player? Not me. But are you noticing that happening, or are you, you know, I know you're about to start a record label, or have started a record label. So how much of your efforts is going into physical product?
Yeah, I think a big part for Wiz is going into it, because I feel like it's kind of the dream, isn't it? You know, to see like something you've created as a physical product. It feels a lot more special, and it feels a lot more like a final thing. You know, if you put something out onto the internet, it's just kind of there. So sort of for our first release, we're going for vinyl. We were like, let's aim big, but I think cassettes in particular, CDs are kind of coming back up. I do a lot of those in trad. Seems to be the
Yeah, I hear that. Why do we think that is?
Because nobody has a cassette player anymore.
Because they're cheap and they're portable. And if you have 5 cassettes that look like this, you have 100 CDs that look like this.
I think they're also I think they're also just quite a nice object as well. Like, I think one of the big sort of reasons that vinyl came back was that it was such a nice object to have. It's an artwork in its own right, and I think cassettes are sort of a more accessible option. I've seen pals of mine that they've created the sort of artwork just printing it on A4 paper, and have had a couple of different illustrators come in, just something in black and white, and that's, you know, super cheap to sort of reel off, and it means you go home with something, so you've got a physical sort of memento.
So it's this artifact. But so Maz, you made a big deal about CD. Are you making CDs?
Oh yeah. We have CDs.
And what are you making them yourselves? And
I've done that. You can steal this idea. I've lino printed my CD covers with lino, and you just get the sleeves, press it, and it's like an artwork. Like each cover is individually different, and people really like that. But I've also done them professionally now, because it's just cheaper to get more. But like, just create a nice. I love the thing inside. What do you call it again? The booklet that comes inside can be like really nice photographs and like stories and like writing. And I think people are very giving, and they just want to support the bands they go to see. They don't really care if they have a CD player or not. They just want to buy something. And they're not necessarily all into fashion, so it's not always about selling T-shirts.
Yeah.
So
you can sign that a lot easier than like a fabric good. But there's a company out of the UK called Elastic Stage. That's the only company I've found that's doing this, but it's print-on-demand vinyl, because I do know for a lot of artists and small labels, vinyl can be very prohibitively expensive because it's a really big investment. And for record shops, it's also a one-way sale. So like they have to take the risk to bring that product in. But Elastic Stage is doing print on demand. So for an artist, they can literally take their music, upload it. They have limited specs and you can't do colored vinyl, but I think the ability to quickly get a product done, and then bands can order bulk orders from them of like 25 or 50, which I think is a lot more great for someone that's like, I'm not ready to press 500 units or 1,000 units of vinyl, but you still can have like your physical vinyl. So that's a company that we've done a couple campaigns with, or like really cool things that are maybe too risky to do a big run. So like maybe it's a live album from like a really special show that you did, and you can get that up really quickly. But yeah, Elastic Stage, that's a new UK company that we've started working with.
This all sounds very familiar, you know. No, I mean, I think 4AD do a lot of print-on-demand stuff with their special editions. So it's like literally you just sell the pre-orders and then manufacture, and it's so much more cost-effective. But no, it is fascinating. It does sound like just a return to old DIY values, but obviously we have got social media, and it feels like everything's just tying in. And I think I know we're not supposed to say this, Olav, but before the panel we talked about, we're having to cover a lot more bases, right?
Yeah, because not one thing that moves the needle anymore. You really need to, everything needs to be some focus in different areas, whether it's socials, whether it's PR, whether it's radio, or different ways of engaging, or live performances. It all needs to be combined to sort of get you to a place to build your audience. It used to be that there was certain markers that you could hit, and then you're like, great, we got this one thing, we're off. We're going to be the next big band. And those, now you get those things, and you're like, oh, we saw a little blip. So. But yeah, I think diversity, and I think one of the things for me that this panel should be about is just figuring out, again, who you are as an artist. Why do you create, and what other ways do you like to create to make it joyful and to make it part of a community? It is your job when you're an artist, and that's what you want to do, but it should hopefully be a fun job and not something that you moan every time you wake up to, like, oh God, I've got to post something, don't I? What did I forget to do today?
Post something.
Yeah.
So, Hallie, can go back to you, just talk about scaling up. Obviously, we've got some great examples of grassroots stuff going on, but how do you scale up these ideas and sort of like reach for the stars? I mean, there's no guarantees, there's no formula in this industry.
No, there's definitely no formula. And like, I do think it's figuring out like what works for you. Like, I think it's Mitski on her socials. It's like an HQ page, and it's not run by her, it's run by her team, but they're very transparent about that, And like, I think that's something where like maybe that isn't something that you're super comfortable about, but that is how some people want to connect with you. So I would say like it probably would behoove you to have an Instagram, even if all you're posting there is just information, but maybe you're very clear that like, this is where you come for information if you want to know about me, and this is Instagram, right? But we'll use some strategies where it's like, maybe it's a band's first tour and we'll still do an artist pre-sale just to start teaching fans that like, you can come to us to get early access to tickets. And it might be like, okay, only 7 people signed up in that market, but we got those 7 people's email address. So that first tour, you got 7 emails in some city you've never played before, and then maybe the next time you come through, you're hitting those 7 people, and then there's 20 people that sign up. So I do think a lot of these things that maybe feel like what larger artists are doing, you can do on a small scale, but it really is about like the repetition and consistency of employing some of these strategies. And I think finding ways to incorporate email collection is really important because that's something that you will own. It isn't a platform that's based on an algorithm, but those are very scalable strategies.
So I remember we did a lot of experiments, the first experiments in bundling, ticket and album bundling, CD bundling. And part of the reason for that was actually about owning that data and being able to sort of like add those, bring that correlation of live performance and the recorded side together so you could essentially sell people's stuff back. I mean, do you feel like that's, is it an easy environment to sort of like own your data when you get more traction as an artist? Many questions there, sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's an important way to build your audience and keep in touch with them. So, I enjoy getting emails from the artists that I love. So, utilize that as best you can. I mean, that's to have that direct connection and not worry, because, I think we all, A, you miss half of the stuff on social media. B, I love the list of gigs in Glasgow, because I definitely, in New York, have artists that play, and I'm like, well, I didn't realize they were playing, and I'm like, and I'm fucking hyper aware of this shit in general. Yeah. So it's like, how am I missing something? If I'm missing these shows, then people who don't work in the music industry are probably completely missing these shows. So.
Yeah, there was a time when like Songkick was really good, but that's sort of like the lack of investment. There's just no sort of like national or local gig guys, but it seems that people are actually moving their ass to do it here.
Facebook events used to be good.
Say again?
Facebook events.
Oh, right. Okay.
Not anymore.
I mean, it's sadly just easier to pick something up and look at the calendar and the dates and see who's got gigs going on. I mean, in the U.S., we've got Oh My Rockness in New York and L.A. and Chicago, and you can literally just scroll every single gig that's going on a day, and it'll even say which gigs are all ages, and it's like, but if that's in print form, that's also and you can put those around in pubs and other venues, and it's so much easier than trying to hope you find something on socials.
Yeah. So I think you just mentioned Facebook events.
Yeah, sorry.
So, is that one of the original social media platforms that's not working so well anymore?
Yeah, it used to be great. Like, it used to be, I'm going to, I don't know, Paris. Well, okay, what's happening in Paris? You go on Facebook and you can just see what was happening, and like it was active, and now it's like completely dead.
Now you can see what your grandmother's doing in Paris.
Well, yeah. I can see what everyone's grandmother could be there, yeah, but it's not anymore because people don't use Facebook anymore, so it's kind of dead.
Yeah.
But I used to find that a lot better than Instagram, because Instagram, yeah, you make a post and then it dies in the feed, so you have to keep posting. There's no way of like marking this as like, okay, you know, it's happening, and it doesn't remind you this is happening.
I end up taking a screenshot of things on Instagram, like, oh shit, I'm not going to remember that, so I just take like, in my photo section.
Yeah, I mean, like Bands in Town, Songkick, those places still exist. A lot of them are feeding to other platforms too. So I would say like utilizing all of those spaces and updating dates there. But that's, I think, where email becomes really important, right? And like the idea is that you're slowly building your audience, and like you're building it over time, right? So it's not like all of a sudden you just have like a ton of fans. Sometimes that happens, but I think that kind of like consistency coming through. So for us, you know, we'll do a big pre-sale campaign for artists where we're really trying to push fans. Like we'll tease out that a show is coming ahead of time, then we'll announce the show, then we'll push people to sign up for first access to tickets with a pre-sale code, so we collect all that data. I think things like Laylo are really great for that. Co-brand are really great for that. In the US, a platform called Seated that you can use and set up pre-sales for free. And they also, for certain venues of size, they let you do off-platform pre-sales where you can keep part of that lift and make a little bit of money back, actually, and it's free to use. So like those are really great, but then throughout the kind of like marketing of it for the show, we'll try to find other moments in time to collect those emails. So it might be like working with the venue to have an opt-in to join the artist mailing list in the ticket purchase flow. So we're talking ahead of time to those promoters. And then in the venue, we'll use a platform called Set.live, which is also free to use. And they have QR codes where you can create contests. So it could be like to meet a band after their set or get a signed set list. And then you can collect that data. So then when you hopefully come and play that city again, you have all these touch points where you collected fans' emails, and now you have people that you can directly message. So maybe you're segmenting out that list to say, hey, London, we're coming through, and here's the specific information about our London show versus like, here's all of the shows. So I think like it does take time. But, you know, there are ways to kind of like consistently be building those email databases. And I find that those work a lot better than social media does.
Do we genuinely, because everyone's being bombarded by everything, do we genuinely think that audiences are growing for music? It's a broad question. I mean, are their behaviours changing?
I mean, I think behaviors are constantly changing. I don't know if are we at a point where we can grow audience. I mean, individual artists can grow their audiences, but you know, I feel like I think one thing that DSPs has led to actually is suddenly music just became something that's on your phone. Yeah. You know, probably those people weren't the most engaged with music to start with.
We can blame Steve Jobs for that, can't we?
Yes, absolutely. But you know, I think that hopefully we have gone over the crest, and that there, as we've talked about earlier, just that desire to re-engage with culture and re-engage with people. I think that's where we are at a stage. I think we're just coming over the hill, but it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, well, it's definitely been an interesting sort of like 15 years or 20 years. I think Spotify are 20 this year, aren't they?
That's scary.
Yeah. It's a mature model.
It's quite hard to get people to gigs, for sure.
It is, do you find?
I think there's a huge gap between like really big artists and not so big artists. And I think it's worse because I feel like younger people don't go to gigs as much unless it's like a huge artist. Whereas, I mean, I'm not that old, but I think if you were a punk like in the 80s, maybe just go to the punk gig, no matter what it is. There's a gig in your town, you're going to it. And you have that trust in the scene and the venue and the people that put the show on and the promoters that this is going to be a good show. which is why I find a lot of older people that come to our shows, they trust the curation of the show, they trust the venue. I've seen that in other cities where like clubs have a membership, for example, and they pay a monthly membership and they get to go to all the shows, and they go to shows and they don't care who it is, they just know it's going to be a good show. And I think it's hard to get younger people, as in like under 25 or under 23s to go to shows that they don't necessarily know the name of.
Yep.
Whereas I know I'm coming from like the hardcore punk scene or something. You just go to a show because you're gonna meet your people, be in your tribe. It's not so much about, are we gonna see this famous TikTok star?
I definitely go to more gigs than my coworkers who are half my age, I will say.
Yeah.
I think COVID affected that too. I think like when I grew up, like a lot of my social life was like outside of the house, and like that was a big part of like how I saw friends and how I discovered music. But I think with how COVID really shut things down, that did impact that behavior for younger generations that kind of like were in that peak time period of like, you know, post high school and into college, because they kind of lost that. And I think economics make a really big contributing factor to that, where like ticket fees are exorbitant, which then just drives up the cost of the ticket. And then it's like a night out. Okay, are you going to have dinner? Are you going to have a drink? Like if you have kids and you need a babysitter, then it's like suddenly this like massive expense to go to a show. And then venues, it's like their margins are getting smaller, touring costs are getting smaller. So I do think for a lot of artists that are in like the very first stages, it's difficult to tour, where it's like not really a money maker to your ecosystem. It's actually, you kind of look at it as like marketing in some ways. So you have to make money off merch. It's an expense. So I do think that is contributing to it becoming more difficult.
You know, the top end is really taking money out of the lower end, but I think you nailed it on the head there, Maz. It's about finding your tribe, finding your community, and great things grow from that. I'm going to go to the audience now. And has anyone got any questions for our esteemed panelists? I should have planted someone. We've got one. There we go.
I've actually got two. The first one's very quick.
Wait for a mic. Can we have a mic here, please?
Thanks, Olaf. Sorry.
Yeah, I've got two questions because the caffeine is kicking in for me as well. The first one I think is very quick though. I was just wondering, have you found a sweet spot for how often a Substack should go out and the length? And the second one is that I run a venue. We can find our own audiences, but we also rely on artists, and it's sometimes difficult to encourage the artists to do their own marketing. So from an artist perspective, is there anything that we could put together for you that would be really easy for you to kind of run with?
Is this for me?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, thanks for running a venue. I think not a lot of people do that anymore. I think as an artist, you kind of always dread doing your own promotion. Like, I think there's two separate crafts that, like, you know, I don't think my bandmates are inclined to do marketing. They have no interest. They just want to play drums, do you know? Like, so it's a bit like, okay, can we be more, you know, business savvy and stuff? And like, of course we'll do it. But I think maybe there's a way where you could, yeah, like collaboration posts, for example, like invite, like, or like think about, maybe say, yeah, maybe give a bit of a structure to bands that are maybe used to doing it. So say like, okay guys, like let's all make a post, or like let's all collaborate on this post and share it. Or, you know, here's some ideas of like how you could share the show. But ideally you should be working with a promoter who knows a little bit more. Like your booker in your venue should be the person that knows how to promote the show and knows, okay, this night's going to be good. I'm going to program them with this other band who's also really good at this, and we're going to contact all these press people, and every month you send your gig listings to the press people and you tell them why they should come. I think really if we can get that job off the artist, that'd be great. but it's not possible. But yeah, we'll do what we can. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously as well, if the artist has a manager, a publicist, radio promo, that's technically their job. So, just being proactive about whenever you're booking a gig, who are the artists on the bill, who are their teams, making sure that you're communicating with them directly and saying these, and keep your own sort of local media list that's up to date that you can send out to them. I mean, a lot of the times it's redundant, but I'd never say no to getting a media list from the local promoter or the local venue owner. There's a chance that there's a local journalist who we didn't have the contact information, that we always wanted the contact information, but it was hard to find. So, just making sure that you're engaging with those people so they are helping to promote. Ultimately, everybody wants a sold-out show. So, just communication. That's the most important part.
We've done things where artists have done teases, so maybe putting the name up on a marquee ahead of time and helping them create assets, because I think it's really labor intensive for how many assets an artist has to create for all the different channels. So we did a show for a band in LA recently, and the venue was you can come in and shoot content here. So when the band was in town, we did a whole content shoot there, and then we used that content to specifically speak to that market. So that was really helpful, and the venue let us come in early on a day that they were dark. So that kind of stuff. And then in terms of frequency of Substacks, I would say it probably depends on what you're including in there. So I probably wouldn't send one every day, but maybe it's every 2 weeks or once a week or once a month. I think it depends on is the content you're putting in there relevant and engaging and new? And if it is, then I think that's probably, when you should send one. But I think it's better across all channels to be consistent with whatever you're doing. So if you're going to do one a month or one every 2 weeks or 3 posts a week, it's way better to consistently keep that than do 10 things for 2 weeks and then nothing for 6 weeks.
but I think neither the venue nor the artist should be doing that. That you should outsource your promoter to do that. So they've assigned that job to promote their show. I wish promoters promote their shows. Yeah.
Any other questions before I go on to a quick fire? We've got one there. Just 1 second.
Hi. I recently read an article in the Wired magazine about geese. I think you've all read it. Everybody's nodding. And I just wanted to ask about what your opinion is about this article, because basically, just summarizing it, it said that geese, it was a bit bashing because they said, oh, geese are such a horrible band because they used a marketing company to help them grow. And geese, I mean, there's a niche band, it's a niche genre, I think, but they played Coachella. And it was the goal for them to do that and the goal for them to grow. And then there was this big bashing that, within that article that said, oh, it's so bad to use marketing in such a way.
Shock horror, band employs marketer to sell
That was
non-story media.
yeah, it was kind of shocking of how unaware the journalists seemed to be about that this had been going on in some form or another for the history of music.
I mean, promo teams aren't cheap, are they?
No, but there was probably some time. It was sort of that story sort of was combined with the other billboard story then combined about the marketing firm themselves. So it was a sort of the reason there was such a zeitgeist is those two stories kind of dropped around each other. And there were probably some unsavory tactics that some companies use.
I think that was very bashy. But look, I don't want to give that much oxygen, actually, because I think we all agree that it was a bit of a non-story. But we've got a few minutes left. I want a quick fire round, if I can get my glasses on. What's one thing that people should stop doing?
Staying home.
Anyone?
Yeah, I'd agree with that one. Get into the community.
Yeah, staying home.
Or waiting for something. I feel waiting until you're further along or waiting until you're bigger. Or, shoot your shot, send that email, you know, like go to the merch booth and talk to that fan. Like I think sometimes just like putting yourself out there, I think a lot of people get nervous and just wait.
Yeah,
And don't do that.
self-promotion is, you know, nobody cares about your career more than yourself. Get out there and do it and have fun doing it.
So if I was to change the question to one thing to invest in more over the next year.
Designers. There's more you can do with a poster than just a photo of a band and the title. You could do so much more interesting things.
Personal engagement. Go talk to a stranger.
Same thing, talk to your fans, like build a community, like create something that is mutually beneficial, you know, like your fans will help build you up, but you're also giving them music, which is like such a great thing, so.
Maz?
Just put your own shows, cut all the middlemen, just do it all yourself and grow small and then get bigger. Get the marketing
It's so
team.
simple. All right, well, thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who's contributed today. Enjoy the rest of your white days. There's lots going on. And Maz, I think, is performing tomorrow night in the showcases.
Yeah, we are the first band at 19:40, which is 7:40 p.m. And please don't be late because we're the first band. We're only playing for 20 minutes. So if you miss it, you'll regret.
Like that.
Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Exactly.